A real strength of your book, I think, is the parallel chronology you develop and interpretations you provide on the UK and US recession experiences. So maybe you can expand on that, since I think many of us in here are familiar with the US experience, but much less so the UK. So maybe just start post-World War II and then go further back.
Yeah, so 1948, 1953, 1957, 1960, 1970, 2001, US recessions each, not UK recessions. And you can go back all the way to 1826 and you will observe a similar difference in recessionary experience between the United States and the United Kingdom, which is odd because these are two very similar economies, similar institutions. They have been deeply financially and economically integrated for a long time. Though one might be tempted to say, well, Brits are just less prone to excitement than Americans. The reality is much more prosaic. So for most of that time period, the primary source of greater stability in the United Kingdom was that from 1826 on, the United Kingdom had a nationwide system of branch banking. So if you think about a national economy as being similar to a broadly diversified portfolio, you may have weakness in one region or one sector that's offset by strength or resilience in another. And so in the United States, where we had, for domestic political reasons, you couldn't operate across state lines if you were a bank, and in most states for most of US history, right up until the 1970s and 80s, you couldn't even operate more than one branch within a state. So we had tens of thousands of small, undercapitalized, underdiversified financial institutions that would tend to amplify adverse shocks when they would occur. The second reason for the greater avoidance of recessions in the United Kingdom is that from 1926 to 1972, the United Kingdom went without an official coal strike, and they were an overwhelmingly coal-intensive economy. So the 1948, 53, 57, 70 US recessions, which were very much oil-related, those were much less impactful in the United Kingdom simply because of the mix of their primary energy stack.
Maybe I can expand on that a bit, because obviously an important source of demand for coal in the 19th century were the railroads. And in your book, you put together some interesting charts and analysis of that period. I was, again, neither being a student of history nor of the railroads, I was struck by how similar the railroad adoption curves, if you will, are between the UK and the US. You know, geographically, the US is a very different country, obviously much bigger, much less history of connectivity among different parts of it. And yet, if you just sort of look at the cumulative, I guess it's miles of track is the thing that you're measuring, it's really striking how similar those are.
Yes, and that was one thing that really struck me.
And maybe just to bring it today, you know, we're in the midst of a big innovation boom, not railroad, but, you know, large language models and hyperscalers and investment. So
something that struck me in the book was that take your pick of transformative technology, whether it's canals or railroads or fiber optic cables in the 1990s and 2000s. A lot goes on. There's a lot of noise with regard to valuations and pricing, but in terms of the real physical infrastructure, as Rich suggested, there is remarkable fidelity to long-run trends that if you just plot it, it resembles a very smooth technology S-curve. And as you said, there's remarkable slope preservation across time and across countries. And I would just like to add, in addition to the statistical aspect of that, there's a very fascinating historical element, which is if you read either contemporary or secondary accounts of 19th century economic history, you would think that railroads and overinvestment or speculation in railroads was a serial killer of economic expansions.
Guilty as charged.
On both sides of the Atlantic. But again, there is remarkable fidelity. There are no fits and starts in terms of that cumulative mileage. But the narrative set in very early. So there was this very important transcontinental railroad in the United States, the Northern Pacific Railway, for really quite idiosyncratic reasons. It ran into some difficulties, and the failure of the bank that was financing it was a precipitous event of the 1873 US recession. At the time, Cornelius Vanderbilt and many contemporary press reporters concluded, well, this is what happens when you attempt to build a railroad from nowhere through no man's land to no place. The project was eventually completed. It's still in existence today.
Yeah.
Can you guess who owns it? Berkshire Hathaway, in full. So it is now, this bridge from nowhere through no place to no man's land is owned today by the most legendary value investor of all time.
Yet another fun fact I did not know.